In a galaxy ruled by ancient empires and powerful races, there was one world feared and respected above all, Valtherin. Its kings were warriors, its queens were visionaries, and its royal bloodline held a secret power, the bond. Every royal heir had to form a life bond with a chosen one. 'Twas more than marriage. The bond connected hearts and minds. It gave the royal heir access to the ancient powers of their ancestors' technology, knowledge and energy that could control entire star systems. And in this mighty empire, a child was born. Her name was Sci-fi. From the moment she opened her eyes, actually, she never did. She was born blind, and her legs weak, thin, and mechanical from birth. The doctors called it a rare genetic failure. The nobles called it a curse. Her own mother wept not from joy, but from shame as she grew. Sci-fi felt it all. The silence in the halls when she entered, the whispers behind her back. How can someone like her rule? She can't even walk without help. She's blind, a broken princess. And yet, the law was clear. The firstborn must go through the bonding ceremony when they came of age. If the bond chose her, she would rule. But the others never gave her the chance. At 16, the palace held the sacred gathering. Noble heirs from every allied race came to all. Strong, beautiful beings with bright eyes and perfect genes. Each one stood before her, one by one. They touched the bonding crystal, and walked away. Some laughed, others just frowned. No connection, no glow. Even the crystal, it seemed, did not want her. And yet, Sci-fi remained still. She didn't cry, she didn't beg. She only whispered to herself, maybe someone, somewhere, will see me. The High Council was furious. Without a bond, the power of the empire would begin to fade. The royal bloodline would weaken. Wars would follow. Enemies were already watching. The King Sci-fi's father stood before his court. For years, he had kept hope, but now his voice was cold. If no one among our people will bond with her, then we must open the gates. Let the other species try. Let the universe choose. There was silence, an outrage. You want to offer our sacred bond to outsiders? To humans? They are primitive. But the king didn't listen. In his heart, he still feared war. He needed the bond to happen. So messages were sent across the stars. An open call, a dangerous offer. The Princess of Valtherin seeks a bond. All species may apply. The bond accepts, the connection will be honored, even if the chosen one is not of our kind. Far away, on a small human space station called Orion Drift, a man named Ray Carter received a message. He was not a soldier, not a hero, just a mechanic. Greasy hands, tired eyes, and a quiet heart. He had once dreamed of exploring space, but life had other plans. A crash had taken his family. Now, he just fixed things and tried not to feel too much. The message flashed on his screen. Most thought it was spam or a prank. It's invitation to Valtherin, candidate for royal bonding. His friends laughed. You? A royal bond? That's a joke. Ray almost deleted it, but something stopped him. Maybe it was curiosity, or boredom, or the soft voice in the back of his mind that whispered, what if? So he packed a bag, took a shuttle, and left Earth behind. When he arrived, the palace was like nothing he had ever seen. Towers made of crystal, floating bridges, alien music that echoed in the air like wind through glass. But the people? They stared. They mocked a human. Is this what we've come to? She deserves better than this insult. Ray didn't care. She wasn't here to impress anyone. She just wanted to meet the princess. And then he saw her, sitting alone, on a silver bench, wrapped in white robes, eyes clouded and distant, legs stiff and metallic, but calm, quiet. Still.serai.Ray didn't laugh. He didn't turn away. He walked toward her and sat down. There was a long silence. Then Sarai spoke softly. "You're not afraid of me." Ray shook his head. "No." She turned her face toward him. "Even though I'm broken." Ray smiled. "You're not broken? You're just different." Sarai looked down. Her fingers trembled slightly. Everyone left. No one wanted to bond. Ray looked at the glowing crystal in the center of the garden. "Then let's find out what happens if I try." He stood, walked to the crystal, and placed his hand on it. The crystal stayed silent. For one breath, ... then dash light. A soft hum, a warm glow. A pulse like a heartbeat. Gasps filled the garden. The bond had reacted down to a human to him, and in that moment, Sarai smiled for the first time. Asterisk, you don't belong here. That was the first thing Ray Carter heard as he stepped out of the silver transport ship. He had barely set foot on the glowing platform of Valtherin when the alien guard looked him over. Dirty boots, old jacket, human face, and made that clear. Ray didn't argue. He never did. He just looked up. Above him, the sky shimmered like liquid glass. Strange birds flew between floating towers. A moon, broken in half, hovered low in the horizon. Everything here looked perfect, except him. 3 days earlier, Ray was fixing a water pipe on Orion Drift, a forgotten human station orbiting a gas giant. The ceiling leaked. The food was recycled. The people were tired, just like Ray. Ever since the accident, he had stopped dreaming. His wife and daughter gone in a ship malfunction. And Ray. He had survived, barely. But the man he used to be had stayed behind in that wreckage. Now he lived quietly. Fixed broken things. Avoided conversations until a strange message appeared on his personal screen. You are invited to the bonding ceremony of the Valtherin Empire. A chance to connect with royal blood. A chance to be chosen. He laughed at first, thought it was a scam. But something inside him stirred. A whisper. A small voice. What if this is real? So he replied, half joking, half hoping, and 3 days later, he stood on an alien world where humans were nothing but a joke back in the palace gardens. The memory of the glowing bond crystal still echoed through the court. It had responded to him, a mechanic, a human, an outsider. The nobles were furious. The council called it a mistake. The king demanded tests, but Sarai, the blind princess, said nothing. She simply asked to see Ray again, in a small chamber guarded by 2 tall insect-like aliens. Sarai sat alone. Her eyes still clouded, her posture still royal. Ray was brought in without ceremony. He looked around awkwardly. This room has no windows. Sarai turned her head toward his voice. I don't need windows. Ray chuckled. Right. Sorry, stupid thing to say. She smiled faintly. Not stupid, just human. He sat across from her. The silence stretched, then she asked softly, Why did you come? Ray didn't answer right away. I don't know, he said at last. I guess I wanted to see if someone like you could really exist. Sarai tilted her head. Like me, you were born into a perfect world. But you're not perfect. And still, you're here. You're strong. No one ever called me strong before, she whispered. Well, they're blind, Ray replied, then winced. Sorry, I didn't mean it's okay, Sarai said, smiling gently. It's the first time someone made a joke. And didn't pity me after. Outside the chamber, the council watched through silent screens. They saw the connection growing, and they were afraid. If a human could bond with royal blood, the old rules would break. The empire would change. Change was dangerous, so they made a decision. That night, the king summoned Ray. "You have caused disruption," the king said, his voice cold and deep like thunder. Ray stood still. "I didn't mean to. I just touched the crystal." The bond reacted. "That means there is potential," the king said. "But potential must be tested." He walked forward, eyes piercing. "You will go on a task. With Sarai, a mission that will prove if your bond is true or just noise." Ray frowned. What kind of mission? The king turned toward a star map, pointing to a dark, storm-covered moon. Valkyro 7, a broken world, dangerous, wild. Inside it lies a royal relic. Many have failed to retrieve it. You must succeed. And if we don't? Ray asked. The king didn't answer. He simply walked away. Back in her chamber, Sarai was quiet when Ray told her about the mission. "They want us to fail," she said calmly. "I know," Ray replied. There was a long silence. Then Sarai asked, "Why are you not afraid?" Ray looked at her, this strange and quiet girl. "Born into power, but treated like nothing. I've already lost everything," he said. "So now, I'm just trying to do something that matters." She nodded, then whispered, "I want to matter." 2. As the transport ship prepared to leave, Sarai reached for Ray's hand. Her fingers trembled. Cold metal against warm skin. "If we die out there," she asked, "will anyone remember us?" Ray squeezed her hand gently. "I will," he said, and then the ship rose into the sky, carrying a human and a broken princess into the unknown. Together, it started with a heartbeat, not his, not hers, something. Between them, deep inside the storm-covered moon of Valkyrosavan. 2 lives stood connected by a force no one understood. The broken princess, the human outsider, and the bond. The storm raged. Above, like a living thing. Lightning cracked through black clouds. Acid rain hissed against the hull of their small drop-dash ship. Inside, Ray Carter watched the monitors blink red. Wind speed lethal. Oxygen thin. Terrain unstable. Perfect place for a death mission, he muttered. Sarai sat beside him, eyes closed. Her breathing was calm, controlled. Ray glanced at her. "You okay?" "I can't see the storm," she said softly. "But I can feel your fear." Ray blinked. "You felt that?" She turned her head toward him. "Yes, just for a second." The bond was growing. The ship crashed harder than expected, slamming into the black rocks of Valkyro 7. Metal bent. Lights flickered. But they survived. Ray helped Sarai out, holding her carefully as the wind roared around them. Beneath their feet, the ground pulsed faintly with ancient energy. "This moon used to be a temple," Sarai said, "before it was destroyed in the old wars. Somewhere below is the relic." Ray checked the scanner. No map, no path, just chaos. "Then we walked through it," she said. The journey was not easy. Sharp rocks, poisonous mist, strange creatures, with glowing eyes that watched from the shadows. But Ray kept her close, guided her step by step, and slowly, something changed. Sarai didn't walk like someone broken anymore. She listened to the wind, to Ray's footsteps, to the echoes of each sound. She started leading instead of following. Ray watched her in awe. "You don't need me," he said once. Sarai smiled faintly. "I do. Not because I am weak, but because I don't want to be alone." After hours, they reached the entrance. A shattered stone gate, half buried in ash and time. Symbols glowed faintly on the wall as they stepped forward. The ground shook, and from the shadows, something rose. A guardian 10 feet tall. Metal bones. Burning eyes. It had waited for centuries without speaking. It attacked. Rey pushed Sarai aside and fired his plasma tool weak against its armor. The Guardian swung a massive blade. Rey dodged. Barely. Then Sarai stood up. She didn't run. Instead, she stepped toward the enemy. Rey shouted, "Sarai, no." But she whispered something ancient, a word she didn't know she knew. The Guardian froze, then knelt. The bond had unlocked something inside her memories, not her own. A link to the royal line. They walked past the silent Guardian into the darkness. At the center of the ruins, they found it, a crystal orb floating in the air. It glowed softly, whispered in a voice older than time. Rey stepped forward, but it didn't react. Then Sarai touched it, and the chamber lit up with golden light. Images flashed past kings, great battles, stars being born. Rey's heart raised. Then his hand brushed hers and the light turned blue. The orb rose higher. The chamber began to shake. "Sera," I gasped. "It's choosing us. Together." Rey looked at her. "But that's not possible." "I'm not." "You are now," she said, her voice trembling. The bond was complete. But above them, others were watching. A second ship landed on the surface of Velcaro 7. Inside it were 2 alien nobles, sent by the High Council. Their orders were clear. If the bond succeeds, eliminate. The human, Rey and Sarai, climbed out of the temple, relic in hand, the sky now calm. They were tired, but smiling, until Rey saw the shadows waiting for them. The guards raised their weapons. "Don't move," one said. Sarai stepped in front of Rey. "We completed the mission. The bond is real. You were never meant to succeed." The noble growled. "You're afraid," Rey said quietly. "You bonded with her." The aliens snarled. "And now, you must die." A shot fired. Siri screamed. Rey tackled her. The blast missed. They ran through the storm, through pain, through fear. They ran back aboard their damaged ship. Rey started the engines. Smoke filled the cabin. Systems failed, but the ship rose, barely as they flew back to Valtherin. Rey looked at Saras, shaking blood on her arm, but still proud. "You okay?" he asked. She looked at him with those blind eyes and said, "I saw you, in the dark." Rey blinked. "What?" "I couldn't see with my eyes, but I saw your memories, your grief, your strength, your heart." Rey didn't know what to say, so she said it for him. The bond isn't just between royals, it's between souls. Back at the palace, alarms rang. The princess had returned alive and bonded with a human. And now, nothing would ever be the same again. A moon does not cry, but this one did. Velcaro 7, once the heart of an ancient empire, now wept acid rain from its torn skies. Its black rivers hissed with chemicals. Its rocks groaned under forgotten gravity. In the silence, far below its poisoned clouds, a hand reached out from the rubble. It was Rey, dust in his mouth, blood on his face, and Sarai. Gone 12 hours. Earlier, the return to Valthron had been brief. Too brief. As soon as Rey and Sarai entered the palace gates, they were separated. Guards surrounded them. Questions were barked. Tests began. Was the bond real? Was the relic authentic? Was this human? A threat, Sarai protested, but her voice meant little. Rey didn't resist. But he never stopped watching the doors, waiting for her to return. She sang him instead. The king called him to the throne room, alone. The chamber was silent. Wide cold. Rey stood beneath golden arches, facing a throne made of living metal. The king looked down at him. "I did not expect you to survive." The king said flatly. "I didn't expect to care," Rey replied. The king raised an eyebrow. "Yet you do?" Rey nodded once. She's not what you think. She's everything I fear, the king answered. He stood, cloak flowing behind him. The bond between you and Sarai is growing. That much is clear. But what is not clear, ... is your purpose. I didn't come here to rule, Ray said. I came because no one else would. The king's face hardened. Then prove it, a test. Another one. But this time, a trap. They dropped Ray and Sarai back onto Velkaru's 7 deeper than before. No ship. No support. Just a mission. Survive 24 hours. If they made it back to the extraction point alive, the bond would be recognized. If not, well, they would disappear into the dirt. No one argued because no one expected them to return. Now, back in the present, Ray coughed as he pulled himself free from the rubble. The explosion had come from under the Roxanne old mine. Someone triggered it remotely. He looked around. No sign of Sarai. Sarai, he shouted. No answer. He tapped his communicator. Static. He checked the scanner. Broken. Only one thing worked. His bond, a soft pull in his mind. Like a thread of light pointing. Left, he ran. Sarai lay under collapsed stone. One leg trapped, ribs cracked, blood on her forehead. She couldn't see. But she could feel him coming, not with her ears, left her heart, with the bond done hands. Warm, shaking, Ray, she whispered. He breathed. He lifted the rocks with bare hands, skin tearing. She cried out in pain. Sorry. Sorry. Finally, he pulled her free. Held her, checked her pulse. Still alive, he said softly. You stubborn alien princess. Sarai smiled through the pain. You're crying. I'm not. You are. Ray looked away. Let's get out of here. They limped together, one step at a time, through the ruins. Sarai's voice was weak. Why did they do this? Because they're scared, Ray answered. Of what? Of what happens? When someone like me loves someone like you, Sarai. Went quiet, then said, this bond hurts sometimes. Ray nodded. It's not just love, it's everything. Pain, fear, truth. And do you still want it? He stopped. Turned to her. I didn't choose this, Sarai, but I won't run from it. She reached for his hand. I believe you, she whispered, even if no one else does. Just ahead, a cliff edge. The extraction signal on the other side. But between them and safety, a swarm of biomech beasts, leftover war machines, glowing eyes, razor limbs. Ray cursed under his breath. No weapons, no time. I can distract them, Sarai said. No, you can make the jump. I'll stay. No. She looked up. At him, blood dripping down her cheek. Ray, this empire doesn't need me. It never wanted me, but it needs you. Ray bent down, held her face in his hands. You don't get it, he said. I didn't come here to be a hero. Then, why? I came here because I saw someone the whole universe gave up on. And I wasn't going to be one more person who walked away. He turned and ran, straight toward the machines, screaming, yelling, throwing, yelling, throwing. Rocks, making noise. They turned toward him. He ran the other way. Sarai, with trembling arms, crawled toward the edge. Ray darted through wires and claws, dodging death at every turn. Finally, he jump-slid down beside her, grabbed her tight hand, leaped off the cliff. Silence. Then, a soft hum, a glowing shield surrounded them. The bond had responded again. Protected them. They landed hard, but alive as the evac ship arrived. Sarai looked at Ray, eyes blind, but soul open. You could have left me. He smiled. I already told you. He squeezed her hand. I'm not leaving. He dreamed of fire, not the burning kind, but the kind that waits in your chest, that flickers behind your ribs, that whispers, You care too much, and it will destroy you. Ray Carter woke up in a silk bed, sweating. The air was cold. The room was quiet, but inside him, something burned. It had been 5 days since the trial on Velcara-7. Ray and Sarai had returned. Alive barely. The palace could no longer deny the truth. The bond between them was real and growing stronger. But the Empire didn't celebrate. They studied, watched. Whispered. Ray was now kept in the East Wing, a golden prison with guards outside every door. They said it was for his protection. He knew better. He had become a problem in their perfect system. Sarai was somewhere else, separated from him again. Doctors tested her mind. Machines scanned her DNA. Psychics tried to break the bond, but couldn't. They said it was dangerous. They said a human could never be part of the royal line. But Sarai wasn't listening anymore. She was remembering in the silence of her private chamber. Sarai sat alone, is closed, heart open. Every night since Velcara-7, she had seen visions in her sleep. But they weren't hers. They were Ray's. His daughter's laughter, his wife's voice before the crash, the burning wreckage, the lonely years that followed. She felt it all. Pain that wasn't hers, but lived inside her now. That morning, Sarai walked and invited to the king's throne room. She stood tall, metal legs clinking, eyes still blind, heart blazing. You will stop the tests, she said. The bond is part of me now. You cannot separate it. The king looked down at her. You think you're strong because a human loves you? No, she said. I'm strong because someone saw me before I saw myself. That night, Ray was released from the East Wing. No warning, just silence. Then Sarai at his door. She stood there, hands trembling. I couldn't feel you, she whispered. Ray blinked. What? They blocked the bond for 3 days. I couldn't feel anything. It was like I was dying in the dark. Ray stepped forward, took her hand. You're not in the dark anymore. They walked through the moonlit garden in silence. The same garden where the bond had first reacted. Sarai stopped beside the glowing pool. I want to show you something, she said. She sat down, removed the small device behind her ear. Ray had seen it before. He thought it was just a neural stabilizer, but it wasn't. It was a suppressor. She spoke quietly. I was born with something more, a deeper connection to the ancient systems. Too deep, too unstable. It scared them. Ray frowned. So they shut it down. Yes, she whispered. The blindness. The weak legs. That wasn't fate. Ray's heart sank. They did this to you? Sarai nodded. So I could never bond, never rule. Ray's fists clenched. Why? Because a princess born too strong is more dangerous than a princess born broken. Silence. Just the sound of wind. Then Sarai said something she had never said before. Ray, I'm scared. He looked at her gently. Of what? If we bond fully, if our minds merge completely, I'll be changed forever. I won't just feel you. I'll become part of you. And you'll become part of me. Ray took a deep breath. Sarai, I've already changed. You made me feel again. You gave me a reason to keep breathing. He stepped closer. No matter what they say, this bond isn't just between bodies. He touched her heart. It's between wounds. Suddenly, the ground shook. Alarms echoed through the palace. Lights flashed red. Ray turned toward the sound. Footsteps. Dozens. Not soldiers, assassins. The bond was too strong. The council had made a decision: kill the human, silence the princess, restore the old order. Ray grabbed Sarai's hand. Run. They sprinted through the crystal halls. Sarai relying on the bond instead of her eyes. Ray pulling her through twisting corridors. Behind them, Weapons fired. Walls shattered. Guards fell. Finally, they reached the lower chamber. The vault, the place where only royals could enter. Ray placed his hand on the scanner. Nothing. SERA. I stepped forward. Placed both hands. The bond surged. The door opened. Inside, a chamber of light. Machines older than memory, and in the center, the final bonding core. Sci-fi turned to Ray. They'll never stop chasing us. I know, but if we finish the bond, they can't remove you. You'll become part of me. Legally, spiritually, forever. Ray looked at the core, then back at her. I didn't come here to survive. He smiled gently. I came here to stay. Asterisk, the palace lights went out, not flickered, not dimmed, they died. Every hallway, every tower, every crystal lens across the floating city of Valthron suddenly turned dark. Only one room still glowed. The vault inside. Two silhouettes stood. Near the bonding core bodies lit in blue light. Hands still locked together, eyes closed. Sci-fi and Ray. The core pulsed around them. It read their thoughts, matched their minds, echoed their emotions. Pain, love, memory, fear. The bond was finalizing. But outside the chamber, the Empire had already started to break. 2 hours earlier, a servant dropped a plate in the royal kitchen. No one noticed. She picked it up, trembling, then slid a data crystal into a vent. One whisper sent in the docking bay. A mechanic paused while repairing a scout ship. He lifted a panel, clicked a switch, and cut the palace power from within. To whispers sent in the East Wing, a young alien officer looked at his wristband, then turned around and told his soldiers, "No more orders from above. We choose now." 3. Whispers became fire. The rebellion didn't start with guns. It started with stories. Of a blind girl who wasn't weak. Of a human who touched. A royal heart of an empire that feared its own future. The people didn't rise because they hated the king. They rose because for the first time they saw hope back in the vault. The final stage of the bond began. Sci-fi trembled. Ray was silent. Their thoughts were now open to each other completely. Ray saw himself through Sci-fi's eyes, scruffy, sad but full of light. Sci-fi saw herself through Ray's soul, powerful, beautiful, worth fighting for. Then came the wave of memories. Ray dropped. To one knee, he saw every moment of her pain, her first steps, her legs failing, the surgeries, the isolation, the guards laughing when she fell. He couldn't breathe. "Sci-fi," he whispered. "I'm still here," she said, holding him. And then she saw his scars, the fire, the crash, the scream of his daughter calling his name. She didn't cry. She held him, and the core lit up brighter than ever before. Above the vault, chaos had spread. The High Council gathered in panic. They've entered the core. Shut it down. Destroy it if you have to. But if they complete the bond, they will control the throne. The king stood silently. His hands gripped the edge of the throne. "I raised her to be quiet," he muttered. Instead, she listened. To what? A noble asked. The king's eyes burned. To the wrong heart. Suddenly, the vault doors burst open. Ray and Sci-fi stepped out. Their hands still linked, their faces calm. The bond now complete. Not a trial, not a test. A fact the princess had chosen. And the bond had chosen back. The palace guards pointed their weapons, but none fired. Because in the next moment, the network of the royal system reactivated. Every ship, every defense ring, every throne-linked drone across the sector all lit up, and the access key. "Not the king. Sera." I saw her voice echoed through every hallway. "This is Princess Sci-fi of Valthron." I speak with the voice of my ancestors, and I am not alone. Rey stepped forward beside her. You feared our bond, but this bond is not weakness. It's your warning. The system is changing, whether you accept it or not. Down below, the city roared. Servants dropped their trays and picked up crumbs. Pilots disobeyed flight orders. Engineers locked out command towers, and one by one, towers of loyalty began to flicker. Old systems falling, new hearts rising. The king stood in silence. The nobles panicked. One of them turned to the king. What do we do now? The king answered without blinking. We end it. He pressed a hidden control on his ring. A signal, a final plan. Rey and sci-fi had only minutes. The walls began to vibrate. Explosives, collapsing ceilings. Traps they never saw. Sci-fi turned to Rey. They're trying to bury us before we rise. Rey smiled grimly. That's fine. We've already planted the seed. They ran through the chaos, but the walls fell faster than they could move. Suddenly, door burst open. A group of guards stood there. Rey stepped in front of sci-fi. Fists clenched, but the guards didn't shoot. They saluted. You're not alone. Anymore, one of them said. And just like that, the revolution became real. No sound, no war drums, no alarms, no voices, just the cold, breathless silence that happens when an empire realizes it's dying. From the highest tower of Valtheran's royal city, smoke curled into the red sky. Fires burned in half the districts. Riots had ended. Not in blood, but in belief. People weren't begging anymore. They were deciding. And at the center of it all stood a girl who was once laughed at. Blind, crippled, forgotten. Now, queen by bond. But sci-fi didn't wear a crown. She wore scars. Some on her body. Most on her soul. Rey stood beside her, hands bruised, chest bandaged. Eyes tired. He didn't look like a ruler. He looked like a man who had been through hell and chose to stay. And because of that, the galaxy was watching in the Great Hall. The ancient platform began to rise. The final ceremony chamber, it's used only for kings, now opened by bond authority. Sci-fi and Rey stepped forward, but before they could reach it, someone else arrived. The king died alone, unarmed, eyes no longer burning, but hollow. Sci-fi didn't flinch. You came to stop us. The king shook his head. Slowly, no, I came to understand. Rey stepped closer, guarded. You tried to kill your own daughter? The king's voice cracked. I tried to save the empire. You mean keep it the same, sci-fi said. The king looked at her, then really looked. You are not the girl I raised. Sci-fi stood tall. No, I'm the woman you tried to erase. Silence. Then, the king stepped aside. Go, he said. But remember this: if you break the old order, you will inherit everything it held back. Rey replied, then we'll build something better. The final platform lit up. The bond, already complete now, had to be recognized by the ancient systems. The empire's core, machines stirred that hadn't moved in 1,000 years. Voices echoed in the chamber. AI systems laced with ancestral memory, royal blood confirmed. Bond integrity, stable, human genetic anomaly. Accepted. Then came the final question. What name shall rule Valtheran now? Sci-fi turned to Rey, and without hesitation, said, not a name. A bond. Suddenly lights burst outward from the core. Across the planet, across space, to every ship, every drone. Every citizen, a new code spread. A new symbol, not of a person, but of two hands. One metal. One flesh. Clasped together, the bond had become the new royal seal. But peace does not come easily. Outside the palace, One final fleet approached, loyalists who rejected the change. 30 ships, armed, ruthless, the last breath of the old empire, inside. The control chamber, Sarai stood still. Ray stepped forward. "We can use the network. Defend ourselves." "No," Sarai whispered. "Not with fire." She touched the console and sent a message to every ship. Live. Her voice filled every cockpit. "This is not surrender. This is invitation. You don't have to follow me. You don't have to accept him. But you cannot deny what has already happened. The bond is real, and so is the future." There was silence on the line. Then, one by one, the ships powered. Down. Ray sat beside her as the core lights faded. "It's over," he said. Sarai nodded. "No, it's just beginning." Later, alone in the garden, where it all began. Ray looked at the stars. Sarai sat beside him, hand resting in his. "No more tests," she said softly. "No more running," Ray replied. She smiled. "Still scared?" "Always," he said. "But not of them." "Then what?" Ray looked at her. "Of how much I love you." She leaned into him, and for the first time in the history of Valthron, a human heartbeat echoed inside the royal network, and the people called it not a throne, but a home.